Today we are joining with Sukanya Shantha, Senior Assistant Editor with The Wire. And in Sukanya's recent petition filed in the Supreme Court, the court has pronounced a judgment that seeks to call that calls upon the state of India to remove caste column from prison registers. So we are here with Sukanya. We have a few questions to you. Welcome to Keraleeyam interview.
Thank you, Mridula, for inviting me for this interview. Thank you.
First of all, I want to know a bit more about your petition. That when I went through it, I found that a few states have joined in the petition. And did these states voluntarily join the petition, or they were asked to join? What was the process of it?
So, Mridula, this petition is an outcome of the series of stories that I had done on prisons, which was a part of one of the a series that we had done in collaboration with the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting at The Wire. So Wire and Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting had actually come in collaboration, and we had worked on this. The story specifically, which looks at caste in prisons, which was later converted into PIL, was like I had worked on it for a few months, like for 6-7 months, where I had actually gone about. So caste is it's a lived reality in the subcontinent, regardless of where and which place you are. So if what is seen in the outside world, one can only imagine that it exists in the prisons also, because prisons is more or less a reflection of the society outside. So caste would have a major role to play in prisons is something that is largely known, especially for people who work on human rights. And I have been a human rights reporter for so long, so that wasn't something that was surprising for me. But I still wanted to understand the extent of caste's presence in this space, and I was trying to actually capture that in my story. In the beginning, the story did not really specifically think of bringing in the prison manuals. I was just thinking of like speaking to to incarcerated persons. Somebody I have been, I have a law background, and I have covered like judiciary for a very long time. And I've also worked as a human rights researcher with different human rights organizations. So I've worked in prisons in some or other nature as a journalist who's maybe covered it, or maybe as a researcher. So I had like some contacts in these spaces. So I just decided I will just start talking to people I know of and get a sense of exactly how caste plays out in different ways. Some I also thought like maybe to get a better sense of what these structures are and what the problems are in the structures, let me also take a look at the prison manual. So one of the first prison manuals that I actually came across was because somebody had just in vague passing had mentioned that one prison manual has a mention of caste in it. So I just went and looked at it at the Rajasthan prison manual. And somebody who actually has spent a great deal of time in engaging with caste, I was still very shocked and surprised that the blatant nature in which the caste finds a mention in this prison manual. So it says things like how a person belonging to say a Mehtar community, Mehtar, which is a scheduled caste in Rajasthan state. It's classified as a scheduled caste. So it says that like if a person from a Mehtar community comes to prison, so then you have to assign a certain kind of job, certain kind of work inside prison, because every prisoner actually ends up doing some or other kind of labor work in prison. So what kind of labor work actually will be given to them? So it says that like a person from a Mehtar community will actually do sweeping and manual scavenging work. So that was like too blatant. Like they might actually end up going about practicing caste in prisons, but having it written in a form of a rule. So something that is unconstitutional otherwise to distribute like to actually discriminate people on the basis of caste, have a like labor which is here in a controlled space. It's bonded labor, and bonded labor slavery is already prohibited. But you are actually like making a certain caste person to actually do that kind of work, and that's a law, that's a rule. So that was shocking for me. Then I like read a little more. Then I realized that okay, fine, it doesn't just stop there. It also says that who can actually do the cooking work. So it says that the prison law actually the rule says that a person belonging to say to Brahmin community should actually be given job of cooking. So are these people on a daily basis? Was their occupation when they were out of cooking or sweeping? Well, no. The person who must have actually been asked to do the sweeping work must be doing some other menial job or might have like a white collar job. One doesn't know. Similarly, a male Brahmin prisoner who's come into the prison, maybe perhaps is a terrible cook. But that's a kind of like role that was assigned
And also
to
it says that sufficiently high caste. That is
sufficiently high
again
caste. Yeah, like there are like some
remarks
very
like that.
yeah. So it recognizes caste system. The
Mm.
Manu's caste system that we talk about, it actually recognizes that and recognizes as a law. Like you might not actually find the mention of these things in any other like coded law, like in India.
Book.
Like
Mm.
yeah, so this was something that I was like, okay, like this is something that is really shocking. Now, prison manuals are something which are not very easily available. Like
Mm.
prison is bound by the prison rule book, and every state, because prison is a state subject, every state has its own prison manual, and every prisoner has to abide by it. At the same time, every prison official also has to abide by it. So it's the manual lays out what every prisoner or every prison official have to do in their responsibility, in their capacity as performing that particular role. But are these manuals easily available? No, they are not. And there's a reason. It's by design it's not easily available. The states don't want prisoners to know their rights, to know exactly what their rights are, because the understanding is if they know their rights, they will assert their rights. So keep them in the dark and not have the manual easily available to them. If it's not available to them, if it's not available to the lawyers, you can only imagine it is that much more difficult for like you and me to like actually look like as
Mm.
journalists to keep find this.
It's
So the
very
story is
coded,
yeah,
very
very and
coded
it's
in this.
very yeah, very like it's held back. So
Mm.
the major part of my work actually was to just go looking for this prison manual, find the updated prison manual. I get a copy and I'm not very sure if this is the latest one. Is there a latest one? If there is an updation that has happened? Because if I make a claim and it has already been changed in the prison manual, how do I know it? So that took a lot of time, like a lot of back and forth. Like I had to do, like I had to like actually go travel just for prison manual to like different states. So finally, then I started getting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 prison manual. I started getting it and I started reading them. And I realized, okay, Rajasthan was not an exception. It is pretty much, it's a coded law, like in a rule in almost every prison. So you go to West Bengal, if West Bengal has a caste called Chandal, it has a mention in the prison manual. And there is a mention of what the Brahmins will do. So there are like, you find it in MP, you find it in Chhattisgarh follows MP's prison manual. So you find it everywhere, every possible places it exists. So then I was, okay, now there are like a whole bunch of prison manual where it is mentioned. Are there also, so it might actually exist there, but do they actually also practice it? That is something that I had to confirm. So
Mm.
then I also started talking to prisoners, like incarcerated persons, or maybe formerly incarcerated person in those states. And because of my background in having worked in prisons in different capacities, as a journalist, as a researcher, I had some leeway there, I had some access there. So I started actually using that access a little more effectively, and then started talking to people. Then I realized prison manual mentions a lot of things which are definitely unconstitutional, which are criminal act that is carried out by the state by lawfully. It's not unlawful. It's lawfully committing a crime. But there are so many crimes that they are committing, which are like a caste crime, but they are not actually written in their rule book. Like for example, in Maharashtra, the rule book looks okay. The rule book doesn't show any problem. Kerala's rule book looks okay at the face of it. But is the practice okay there? No, it's not okay. It's very problematic. It's practicing the same Manu Smriti, like what the law, like actually the codified law of Manu actually mentioned it. It's more or less the same way. Like it's actually uh, it believes that like caste has to be divided, like people have to be divided on the basis of caste. It believes that people have to be given like division of labor should happen on the basis of caste.
Mm.
Tamil Nadu did not have any mention of caste, but Tamil Nadu had another problem where labor was not divided, but people were divided themselves. So
Okay.
somebody belonging to a scheduled caste, maybe like say if you look at the southern part of Tamil Nadu, where the scheduled caste in that area would look like the prominent one would be say Pallar caste. So if somebody from a Pallar community actually comes to prison, they will be put in a Pallar barrack, separate
A
barrack,
separate
like as
barrack.
yeah. So like the structure is built in such a way that the barracks are actually called by their caste. Then there is a Nadar barrack, there is a Devar barrack. So and the rationale behind it was, don't bring these communities together, because if they come together, they might actually end up having a conflict.
Mm.
Now think of the same situation in an open space, which is outside prisons in a village. Can we then justify that like a cherry, people can be restricted in a cherry, and somebody from a Savarna caste can actually be restricted only in their space? That's not acceptable, right? That's not, we can't even digest that. There will be an
That's
uproar,
not
there will be
how
like
it
so much
works.
questioning. Yeah,
Yeah.
but prison may, they have actually justified. Somebody came up with this idea and just thought like, okay, fine, this is justifiable, and then went ahead with it. Uh, Much before I had reported, somebody actually raised this issue. There was this one C. Arul Mani, like who actually went to court, and said that this is problematic. You cannot be segregating people on the basis of caste. And it is not just the prisoners who are divided on the basis of caste. Even the prison officials are divided on the basis of caste. What is your rationale behind that? The state, the person went to Madurai bench of the Madras High Court. The state actually justified, saying that it's a law and order issue, and we have done this keeping the law and order issue in mind. The court accepted it. The court, in a very, it was a one two sentence argument, and the court accepted the argument and said that yes, it is a problem of law and order, so we are allowing this. And then and obviously the petitioner was also somebody who was working in a specific area, did not have the wherewithal to actually challenge it in the high court. So it just like it after a point, like it lost its steam there, like it
When
dissipated,
was
and like,
it? When
pardon me,
was it?
this was
Which
around
year?
10 to 12 years ago. I think it was 2011 or 13. I'm not like remembering, but it was many years
Mm.
ago, like a decade ago. So
Okay.
then it had like they gave up on it, and it was continuing. When I was doing this particular story, I got to know that something is happening in Palankote of a certain kind. I spoke to one of the researchers there called K. Raja, who has been working in prisons for a very long time. He's an advocate. I think he was at that moment pursuing his masters in Nalsar, in National Law School in Hyderabad. So I got in touch with him. He actually put me in touch with a couple of people, and he made me talk to a lot of formerly incarcerated persons. It also so happened that Per Arivalan, who was arrested in the famous Rajiv Gandhi assassination case, he had actually come out for a short period of time on parole. So I somehow actually got in touch with him. And then he gave me a lot of information, because he at some point in time was in that prison. He knew a lot of his co-prisoners who could have actually given me some information. So I could build on that very strongly. And like it just happened that I got a lot of people to talk to me. So that was also built on. So these aspects were covered in the story. And then finally, we wrote the story. Like we had the story written. And after the story came out, the story actually made like like as in like some stories that you put out, like it's appreciated well, and then people actually talk about the story. So this was considered to be a like it had like a decent response. But one very effect, like if we were to call impact, the first impact of the story was the Rajasthan, the Jodhpur bench of the Rajasthan High Court, suo motu took cognizance of this article. And because I had mentioned this thing, Rajasthan, extensively in the case study, uh, they uh, they actually said that Rajasthan should do away with all the mention of caste from their prison manual. So I was like, okay, like as a reporter, you feel elated, right? Like when there is like somebody who is actually taking note of it, and then you realize, okay, fine, you're doing something, and even the system is also thinking that it is a problem. The system has also understood it as a problem. So then I was like, okay, this is good. And Rajasthan, for the first time in 75 years, had to change the prison manual. So we were actually like, we just like said, okay,
First
fine, this is
time they changed it.
the first time it was changed. Uh, but is that manual after the change the best manual? No, because they changed only those things that I had mentioned in my story.
Okay.
I also, in my limited understanding, with my limited resources, whatever things I was able to bring out, I brought it out.
Mm.
But there were so many other things which I missed out on. Maybe I did not have proper understanding of that, or maybe I did not have proper access to it at that moment. So because I missed out, The prison officials also missed out in their amendment. To cite this example is like, so when Rajasthan thing happened, so I was then obviously I got a little greedy. I actually started thinking that okay, fine, can other states also do this? Because at the end of it, this has to go. But
Yes.
you as a journalist, you do not think of ways of like doing it. You just want to write the story, push the story out. But you don't think of like going and doing the advocacy part of it, right? So it's also very like there's a discomfiture there. Like you feel uncomfortable doing that. So I was talking to
Also,
different
you'll have a
organizations.
little, you will be exhausted by each publishing story on
Yeah,
its
yeah,
own,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. It's
So you will not have that energy to move it outwards.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
It
you
becomes
just wait to
difficult.
see what happens.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And also at the end of it, I am a state correspondent who is covering like the entire state, and that's not the only story I'm working on. Even
Mm.
if I have like put in like all my energy, heart, and soul to it, but there is only that much attachment you can have to the story. You have to move to the next story. So I was talking to different organizations. I was not like organizations which have been working on prisons for a very long time. Did not really get like much of a positive response. So I was just thinking, what are the different ways of engaging? So then I kept the prison the research work I kept continuing. I was going back to the prison manual, reading it, understanding it. In the process, I realized I had missed out something very crucial in my story, which was about the historically criminalized community, the denotified community, or the Vimukta community, the community which has been finally denotified or decriminalized. And there is a mention of them. There is a mention of them in a very covert way. Like in some places it's very overt, but in some places very covert. So it says like who can be like assignments of work. It says that who can be assigned the work of say of administrative work. It says somebody who is not a habitual offender. Now we know who is
Mm.
called an habitual offender. Or in some places it actually very blatantly says wandering tribe. Now who is a wandering tribe?
Yes.
Like who are these people? So it very clearly speaks of the denotified and the nomadic community. So then I realized, okay, fine, there's a vast area that I have missed out. But that's an opportunity for me to maybe do another story or maybe like actually like find a way to engage with people and have it removed from because the urgency at that moment was to get it removed from the prison manual.
And
By then I like Disha Badekar, who is my lawyer in this case, along with like a couple of other senior lawyers. Disha is also a very close friend, a dear friend, and then she and I would actually discuss about these things and her understanding and her interest is also in caste annihilation. So both of us would actually find ways of like we would see like how we could engage in this a little more. And then we realized, okay, fine, the research has to be done a lot more. Like we have to dive deeper into it. We have to understand this and see like in a legal framework how we can bring this. So when we started doing that, we just found more and more problems, like more and more problems that we just realized that it has to be addressed. And then we started doing all of that. Then in the beginning, we just thought maybe we can write a letter to all the states. But writing letter to all the states would actually mean they would not respond, like basically to the high court of all the different states. So we were like, if they don't respond, then that is like lost there. And even if writing a letter cannot happen like in one page, you will have to do a
yes.
detailed research. So it's as good as filing a petition. So finally, we thought we'll file a petition. So the petition was never supposed to be filed by me. I was not supposed to file this petition. I just thought I was uncomfortable with the whole idea of filing the petition. I so thought maybe somebody from the incarcerated community can actually like file this, or maybe the organizations which are legitimately like actually out there working on prisons should do
Mm.
this. While the organizations did not actually give any positive response, I just thought like the incarcerated community, somebody from there can do it. But their condition is a lot more vulnerable, right? Like if they actually take on the state, like there's the possibility of them actually getting arrested, there's a possibility of them facing incarceration in some form. So then I was okay, then because I tried talking to a couple of them, none of them were like forthcoming. Even when I was like generally saying that we can do the research, we can actually get the lawyer, but you can be the petitioner. But there was a fear of like actually being targeted again. So then that
Come
was not
forward.
possible. So then I ended up actually filing it because lawyers also felt that because you've done like your body of work actually focuses on caste. So it's not that you have not done the work. And this is primarily like your story, so you can actually be a petitioner. So the idea of becoming a petitioner because then eventually it happened that way and the petition was finally yes.
Also, like in the cases of public interest litigation, uh, it also makes us again aware that one citizen can be a petitioner, and one citizen can raise a question on a subject that is that they have researched on, or like that is a possibility, right?
Yeah, and like for
About
public interest
yeah.
litigation, that's primarily the idea, like as like things
Mm,
in public interest. But courts have also over years shown a certain kind of attitude towards petition PILs, where they feel that a
mm,
lot of PILs, which are like not necessarily uh, really in public interest and has like some vested interest, come to court. That's the court's
okay.
understanding.
Mm,
And there have been like very adverse judge orders also passed where people have also been slapped with like fines. So those
mm.
things have also happened in the court spaces. But yeah, but in this case, as a journalist, a journalistic work was taken up seriously, and
Mm.
the court did acknowledge that it was a well-researched piece of work, and it was looked at as a report and not just like as a well-researched report and not just as a news article,
Mm.
and was given the kind of attention that the issue and the subject actually deserves.
So, from your research, uh, what did you find common among these prison manuals? Like, is there a is there a specific way of looking at prisoners uh, on the basis of the crimes they did, or something like that, or the crimes they are accused of?
So there are a whole bunch of things that actually happen in prison. Uh, One thing is like their attitude towards a prisoner because of the caste identity that they carry, the burden of caste that they carry. There's a certain attitude that actually is shown towards a prisoner, and then if the prisoner, along with the identity of the prisoner, actually belongs to a vulnerable class also, like as in, like it doesn't have the wherewithal, it doesn't have money to actually bribe the prison official, or maybe like just have enough money to make their life comfortable inside prison, so their condition actually becomes that much more difficult. And this was like length and breadth, like it was not in like only one region is more prone to this behavior. Everywhere you go, prison, because it's an opaque space, it's a very confined space, it doesn't have an access to the outside world. So then it a lot of things that happen in prison like stays in prison, it doesn't come out. As against say like an atrocity that happens outside in the outside world, like even if it happens in a closed space, there's a chance of it coming out, like sneaking out in some way. Here that possibility is like that much lesser in this space. So the attitude towards a prisoner, and especially a prisoner belonging to the Dalit community, to a Bahujan caste, like some of the OBC castes also like actually were very vulnerable, like a barbar caste or maybe a Dobi caste. So like a clean washer community. So like they so they were more vulnerable than others, mostly because of the caste, and also to some extent because they did not have the economic capital to make their life slightly more comfortable in the prison. They were not able to bribe, or they were not able to like actually buy out. So it became that much more difficult. Uh, One of the major issues that I saw in Maharashtra, which which had a complexity of both caste, religion, and also region, was of the prisoners who were arrested as Bangladeshi immigrants. So these were like mostly like in women prisons, like that is the place where I found some information on this. In women prison, like there's a women's prison in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, called Baikula prison, where all the women prisoners are lodged. So here there is a whole bunch of women who are accused of being Bangladeshi. They are Muslim women. They are women from the border districts, could be from the Bangladesh border or from the India border. They also belong to Dalit castes, and they are accused under the Foreigners the Act for having actually illegally migrated, like the illegal immigration. That's their allegation. So when these women came to prison, so when a woman is arrested as a Bangladeshi, that means her entire family is also suspect. Her husband is also from there, then he's also suspect, but he's not arrested. Maybe the children are also suspect because they are like offsprings of that family. So all of them have to be sent back, or all of them have to be actually booked under the Foreigners Act. So the woman, when she gets arrested, the same time, everybody from the family, or a man gets arrested, everybody from the family has is pushed to cut off from the family. Because if they actually come to the court, they will also be arrested. If they send a money order, they will also be arrested. If they come to visit them in the prison, they will also be arrested. Any kind of contact they show, they will be arrested.
So they
So
will
all of them
be
would actually,
alone,
yeah. So they are
isolated.
when and being alone in prison without anybody coming to you, coming to meet you, without anybody negotiating your finding out who is going to be your lawyer, without sending you that 1, 2, 3,000 rupees in money order so that you can eat something like beside, like something like there is a canteen facility that actually exists in prison. If you have nothing of that like actually existing for you, your life is it's hell, and it's hell for everyone. It's the worst kind of hell for somebody who is accused of being a foreigner. So that was something that kind of, and because that had like everything, that had caste, that had religion, that had geographical biases that we actually carry, like, and so it was so like it just so complex, that whole violation that was happening there. So yeah, like as in prisoners, like as like the whole uh, prison space is just like filled with this kinds of yeah of examples.
So moving to the next question. Uh, in the judgment, the CJI have mentioned that segregation wouldn't lead to rehabilitation, and given the character of the Indian prisons exposed in the manual, the prisons are also reflecting how the society is functioning, right? So, uh, so how do you look at the present condition of Indian prisons in terms of,
Your voice is not very clear. You'll have to repeat it. It slightly
yeah,
I
I
lost you.
will. Is that my voice is low or something, or
No,
it's a technical thing?
I think I lost you in between. Yeah, so it's also
Okay.
slightly low. You could like speak up a little.
Yeah, I will. So, my question is, I'm simplifying it, that in the judgment, the judge has mentioned that segregation wouldn't lead to rehabilitation. And that, in a sense, uh, hints that Indian prisons are, in a way, a place of correction and rehabilitation. But when the reality is, there are a vast majority of prisoners being framed in cases and illegally arrested if you look at it in that way. Also, what do you have to say about that? I mean,
Yeah.
I just felt this mention very striking that then I thought about it whether it is actually a corrective place or a
Yeah.
place of rehabilitation.
Yeah, like as in correctional, like in West Bengal, it is called a correctional center. That's there. The prisons are called correctional centers. So the whole idea at the heart of it, it's correction, it's rehabilitation that the prison structure claims it to be. But just think of the scenario inside the prison through the statistics that are available to us. So prison population at the end of the year, every year that like we get it in the form of the NCRB data, the National Crime Report Bureau, says that like around 4.5 to 5 lakh people end up in prison. Now that's the number of people who end up being in the prison at that point in the end. But a
Yeah.
lot many more people actually go to prison. They get processed by the criminal justice system because they are like in and out, going in for a few days, going in, like so that apparently could be anything between 15 to 20 lakh is the estimate. But the prison population that is retained in the prison for that long is around 4.5 to 5 lakhs. The prison space is meant to only accommodate 2.5 to 2.75 lakhs. So you already have like explosion. There's a 200%
Mm.
explosion that's happening in the prison. Prison space already is very cramped. Prison doesn't have like everybody is allotted like a small space where they can sit, where they can sleep, where they can eat. There's a amount of food that has to be given is also weighed. Amount of nutrition that has to be given to a person, to a woman, to the children of prisoners, women prisoners, because until from 0 to 6, children can actually live with their mothers. So everything is weighed. When your prison population actually explodes the space, the prison budget doesn't explode. The prison budget will still remain the same. So in that same thing, they are trying to actually make all the adjustments. Uh, in prison, it's very easy because it's crammed up space. It's very easy to actually fall sick. And when you actually take sick, you have to go to the hospital. You either go to the hospital outside or you go to the OPDs, like the centers that are actually attached to the prison. Now, there is only one hospital, the doctor, one RMO, who is supposed to take care of maybe say 500 people because that's the capacity. But the prison is like 400 times more, like the occupancy rate is 400 times more. And instead of 500, there are 2,000 people. So that one person is supposed to overwork and actually take care of so many of them. Because there is no mechanism to actually monitor whether or he or she is working, they choose not to work. So it's it's like, and still you are still calling it a rehabilitation and correctional center. Like at the core of it, that is what it is called. But these are the things we are doing to them. In prisons, the NCRB data says that around 1,800 to 2,000 people die every year because of different reasons. Some 10% of them they claim die of suicide, death by suicide. Another 10% could have died because of a very terminal illness like cancer or HIV or things like that, or TB. Other illnesses are, there are illnesses that are actually that are noted, mentions headache. Now, is headache a reason for somebody's death? So that person must have had headache. The headache could have been a tumor, but we have no idea because the person never actually made it to the hospital and
You're
died
not
much before that.
diagnosed.
Yeah, so it's undiagnosed. So and 1,800 to 2,000 people if are dying in a prison, how many of these deaths could have been actually could have been stopped, like could have been actually prevented? That's There was a scope because you did not even have the diagnosis happening. Heart ailment, something as vague as heart ailment. Heart ailment can be even like a cholesterol or a proper heart attack. It can be a whole range of things. But because the treatment is not available at that time, people don't necessarily die of TB outside. TB is treatable, but people dying of TB in the prison is very common. So that's the prison space. That's the space that we're talking about. So in that space, when prisons are actually, well, how do I say, and then it is called a correctional or a rehabilitation center. It is actually, yeah, it's ironical.
It is. So my question is that since past few years you had been reporting on the Indian prison system, and in your journalistic experience, what do you have to tell about it? I mean, reporting on prisons or reporting on prisoners, and it also is about reporting about the state, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, what
So
do you have to tell us
yeah, so
about?
my understand. So prison is something that. So if I were to put it, let me just try and. So prison is very much a human rights issue. Uh, but the kind of human rights stories that we do at this moment is not actually covering every kind of violation. In fact, like most newspapers, most media houses don't have a dedicated human rights reporter. You would have like somebody to cover, maybe like somebody who has a gender sensitivity, and if there were to be like a gender based violence happening in some place, that person is automatically assigned that job. Similarly, like there might be a riot, somebody who understands, like say, has a sensitive anti-communal lens, like who understands communalization of a certain kind, will be actually assigned that job. But who gets assigned to cover prisons is usually the ones who actually cover crime. So the ones who go to police, they are the ones who actually, when the ones who are covering crime, they would call up the police station, ask, they will make sources among the police and do the story. When they're doing stories from prisons, they automatically are calling up the prison officials, getting the prison officials' version and doing the story. So, what are the type of stories that we usually see from prison? Is if there is a gang lord who is actually getting into some fight inside prison, if there is some drug lord who is actually selling, some mafia who is selling some things inside prison, or if there is some firing that is actually happening in prison, some mobile phones and something that has actually been actually smuggled in the prison. Those are the type of stories which are very sexy stories in that sense. But all these stories are the ones that your prison officials want you to know. Prison living condition is not something that actually gets covered at all. The only human rights violation that actually comes out from the prisons is from the stories that are told and written by the political prisoners. So that's the only context in which you will have prison violation, like different kind of violations coming out in story. But not everybody is looked at as a political prisoner. Like who gets to be called a political prisoner? That is also another that's a discussion. That's another discussion altogether. So when you have like only very restricted way of looking at prisons, then it becomes then prison like stays a space which is completely outside our everyday concerns, and the violations there are rampant. So my understanding is like prisons is like some space where our editors have not allowed us to actually stay more engaged and interested and invested in that, to a point where we'll feel interested in like actually doing that as a sustained reporting. And I just feel, and there is a lot of scope, because that's one place which is like a state's fortress where one is unable to penetrate. So one, from a very investigative perspective, from political policy level perspective, like everywhere you can actually like apply. Anybody who covers these spaces can actually get into the space, become more curious, and bring out stories. But that's not really happening in the prison space. That's been pretty much my experience.
So I'm done with the question.
You done with it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks for
cool.
joining.
Thank you, Mridula.
Thanks so much.